you join me today at the wheel of another Roots Group special favourite. It's a Hillman Minx, a Series 3 Audax from 1959, complete with column change. Now, if you like reviews of interesting, unusual, weird old cars, then do hit the subscribe button and join me for future drives. This car is currently for sale at Sussex Classics in Crawley Down. Link in the description if you're interested in this or some of the other really quite interesting cars they have. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and now it's been said, mostly by me in fact, over the years that we've not had enough Roots Group products on the channel. Especially considering we've had the actual factory where a lot of these things were built in on the channel. There's a link to that down below if you want to go and see the Roots factory in Maidstone, which is an amazing Art Deco building in its own right. But the history there is also phenomenal. The Roots Group itself goes back to the dawn of motoring. However, Hillman is also a very old motoring name going back to 1907. And the Minx name is also a very old motoring name going back to 1945. There were 8 different versions of the Minx over the years, in fact. But the version we're looking at today is the Audax, the range that started in 1957, and this example is pretty early, being in 1959. Now, looking at the design of this car, you cannot help but see and feel and be aware of the American influence in the shape of this thing. It looks a lot like a Studebaker from 1953, and with good reason. Roots designed this thing in-house, but with the assistance of the Raymond Loewy organisation. Also were involved in the 1953 Studebaker, and also, little footnote, see Rover P4 for cribbing the 1953 Studebaker Coupe as well. Raymond Loewy was one of the most renowned industrial designers of the early to mid 20th century. So having his input was that little touch of gold that adds just the right amount of sparkle, so it doesn't go over the top, doesn't look pastiche, doesn't look silly, just looks like a nice restrained middle class British car that's not over the top or too boring. Opening the bonnet is surprisingly modern. There's a bonnet pull under the dashboard, a little catch pops out of here so you haven't got to get your hands too dirty, and the thing sweeps up on spring-loaded cantilevered hinges, so it's all effortless and lightweight, simple but clever engineering, which is very much what Hillman and the Roots Group were all about: high-quality engineering done simply and cost-effectively. Now, under the bonnet of all the Hillman Minxes, you will find a 4-cylinder, single-carb petrol engine. Initially, it was a 1390cc, working up through a 1496cc, and eventually making it to 1725. Being a Series 3 1959, this is a 1496cc. Now, back in the day, one of these was tested with this size of engine, and it managed to do 0 to 60 in 25 or so seconds, top speed of 76 miles an hour, and they achieved about 31 miles per gallon. Now, looking around the back of the car, it really is a product of its age. We've got the wraparound rear screen, we've got the two-tone paint, the green over the light greeny cream. We've got these very slight fins with a chrome finisher along the top, running into these crest-topped tail lamps as well. Now, interestingly, on the back of the car it is badged as a Hillman, whereas on the bonnet it said Roots Group, so they are claiming their own car. So they are claiming their own car here at the back. Of course, also being a 50s car, we do have a full wraparound bumper, which will do serious damage to your shins if you catch that in the garage. Now, getting into the boot, and it is a fairly decent sized boot in this family car. You just turn the little catch here, which does have a key to lock it, and you are in. You do, of course, have full-size spare wheel, being a car of the olden days. This car has lost its carpet, so you can see the metal pressing of the floor, and it's a decent sized space. You get a couple of suitcases in here, no bother. Getting down to the seaside with your deck chairs and your picnic all fit in here, no worries. And also, you can see on this model, the fuel tank is here below the boot floor. Now, before we climb into the car, let's take a moment to marvel at these little spring-loaded covers over the door keyhole, so it keeps the rain and the ice out, so your door locks don't freeze up in the wintertime, and also it looks so much smarter. Now, getting inside, you forget, if you haven't been in a 1950s or 60s car for a while, how simple things were back then. First of all, the door card. It's just a large expanse, well, in this case of colour, which is another refreshing thing. Red with kind of off-white, is that silvery piping? Just a simple window winder, simple door handle, but look, they've still got a bit of mid-century detailing with these rising concentric rings on the plastic cover, and then the gentle fluting and delicate shape of this lovely little arm on the window winder, on the window crank. And this concentric ring pattern, the thick stripes, is repeated in this patch of the door card, which just gives it a little bit of visual interest with no expense for manufacture. Moving up a bit, we have got, of course, got body colour around the window, and a tiny weeny little door handle which you can barely get your fingers through. Clearly people were smaller back in the 50s apparently. And we've got quarter lights, opening working quarter lights, which are a wonderful thing. Air conditioning has replaced this, but we do love a quarter light still. Now before we climb in, let's take a moment to marvel. First of all, it's lovely textured aluminium trim on the kick plate. The fact it has bench seats, so technically this is a 6-seater, and the fact that the handbrake is over here on the right hand side. How curious. Now let's climb in and enjoy the ambience of the interior. Now the first thing that hits me is the smell. When I first bought my 1972 Rover 2000, it smelled identical to this. It's a whiff of carpet and vinyl, a little bit of damp maybe in there somewhere, petrol, and so many other just unique smells to that era of British car. The Rover, of course, was a good decade newer than this, but it still had that very similar smell to it. So let's first look at the dashboard. There is no T-shelf in this car at all. Nowhere to rest your snacks that won't fall off from. You can maybe put some wine gums balanced carefully on here, but as soon as the car hits a bump, they are gone. This is, of course, all, again, body colour, same as the window surrounds. Anything from this era will be nothing but body colour when you are looking at the interior dashboard and that kind of thing. Then we have the steering wheel. It's absolutely huge. I cannot get the lens far enough back to fit it all in. Big white rim thing, only 2 spokes, very elegant, very space age, very jet age design. And of course the Hillman logo at this time was also very, very jet age. We have this beautiful 1950s styling, so it's slim and elegant. It's absolutely beautiful. And the other big thing you might have noticed is, of course, the fact it has a column shift gear change. Manual 4-speed, away and up for first, down for second, towards you for 3 and 4, and reverse. You have to pull the end actually extends slightly, then you pull it all the way down to go backwards. That's your column shift gear change, and your indicator here on the right hand side. Moving into the centre, we've got such a minimal amount of dashboard, no clutter, no screens, no nothing. We've only got a couple of dials and lights just here. The speedo rising up to 90 miles an hour. Our fuel gauge, which thankfully does have some in it, only a 7-gallon tank. That's not a big tank by any means. And this 3-way split dial, our amps for the charging, our oil pressure, and our water temperature. And beneath that, 3 cryptically named pull toggles. This is the choke, this I guess is LUFA lights and woofer wipers. And then we do have now, in what is a fairly middle class car, so we're not going to be cheaping out on too many things, we have got a proper demister and blower heater system, so we have got a bit of luxury in here. And beneath that we have a large full width shelf going the entire width of the car, as I say, with a nice bit of padding on here, so if you do crash it will only bruise rather than remove your shins. And of course there's a slide out ashtray in there as well. And because it's column shift, we have nothing here in the centre of the floor, so if a third person wants to sit in the middle, they've got nothing impeding them at all. And the other thing to bear in mind of cars of this era is the headroom is just epic. If you're a hat wearer, and I should have brought some kind of fedora with me for the occasion to demonstrate, you have got so much room for hattage. Because hats were of course habitually worn in the 1950s, cars were designed to work around that. My beanie does not need this much space. Now when we climb into the back, you'll notice the shape, the forward slash of this wraparound window is repeated in the window frame here in the back door. But despite that, the actual door frame is very, very vertical, giving us a little bit more access climbing in. Although it is quite tight nonetheless, because the space left by the back seat isn't that, or the front seat isn't that big for the knees. So I am quite heavily clamped in here. I say clamped in and just squeezed in because there's no seat belts front or rear in this car, so nothing's actually squeezing me in physically. Headroom is again very good. Elbow room's a little tight if you can have 3 people in the back of it, but I guess it's going to be 4 or 5 kids in the back rather than 3 adults, isn't it? Amenities in the back of the car extend to door handles, window winders, a door pull, and another ashtray. And we do have a very large rear window shelf, so you can put your hankies and extra picnic items back there. This starts up pretty easy, shouldn't need really any choke because it's been running a bit today already. There we go. Happy as Larry. Into reverse, pull that and down. Handbrake down here to the side. And back we go. Away. That's the way in forwards to get it into first. There's a dog loose on the road, I can't leave that. Right, dogs have been recaptured. We can get off again. First gear, away and up. Handbrake down to the side. Off we go. Steering is quite low geared, so it's not too heavy, even though it's not power assisted. It's quite slippery, snicky through the column change gear shift once you get rolling. These old Hillman things always have a feeling of solidity and quality, which some of the Fords and the Vauxhalls don't always seem to capture, even though they're also mass market cars, of course. Now, interestingly, and I use this phrase under advisement, when this car was new in 1957 as a model, the column change was standard and a floor shift was an optional extra. Later on though, that changed around. The floor shift became standard and the column shift became the optional extra. There was also an automatic. Initially it was a thing, I believe it's called a manumatic. It was an automatic with a mechanical automated clutch thing, which by all accounts was pretty terrible. Then it went to a easy something gear shift, and then finally a Borg Warner. I think I've got to start blowing the exhaust today. Again, when the car was new in 57, these were drum brakes all round, but later on by Series 3 they gained discs on the front, so the stopping power was significantly improved. Of course, Roots taught British Leyland everything they knew about badge engineering, and so the Hillman was also available as a Singer Gazelle and a Sunbeam Rapier. Of course, those were twin carb and a bit more exciting behind the wheel. It was also sold in New Zealand as a Humber and in Japan as an Isuzu Minx, incredibly, under license from 1956 to 64. And as well as that, Isuzu managed to do their own estate version of it. Oh, sun visors, this was posh. Although the steering is quite low geared, it's nicely direct. You can really feel what's going on at the front of the car, even if I can't see anything because of the low sun. The ride is really surprisingly firm. Often on 50s and 60s cars, things really are very bouncy and wild. This is actually quite restrained and quite taut. It does feel odd setting off without a seatbelt, even though I've driven so many old cars without them. It's, you know, second nature to put one on in this day and age. And the Audax range was replaced by the Arrow range, which looked a world apart in terms of modernity. It was like something from the next century, not the next decade when it came out, because as pretty as this is, and it is very pretty, it does look and feel very, very mid-century. Whereas the Arrow, the new Hunter, just looked so modern, it made even the Escort look a bit old hat. I didn't think this route through. This is going to be awful trying to pull onto this road. These brakes take a push, even though they are the good ones. They still take a bit of a shove. These are a lot of fun, these old cars. They really do put you back in time when you drive them. Everything about them, the smell, the sound, it's like being in a 1950s B-movie. Well, thanks for joining me today in the Hillman. It's been loads of fun driving it, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. If you have, please do hit like and subscribe and hit the bell notification. Join me again next time driving something completely different.